What's going on, everybody? As you can see, we have we have a little bit of a technical issue today, but I'd like to welcome you all to the Mission Ready Men podcast. Today is Thursday, November 14th, and thank you for joining us here on the SHR Media Network. It's kind of been somewhat slow in the news cycle. Obviously. Obviously, that's not true. We have a pretty packed show for you today. We're going to talk about the cabinet picks, obviously, and I don't know if you heard me just then. If not, I apologize. Like I said, technical issues today. But for those of you who couldn't hear me, welcome to the Mission Ready Men podcast again on the SHR Media Network. Today is Thursday, November 14th. And yeah, it's been somewhat of a busy news cycle. We're going to talk about the cabinet picks, obviously, and the left's reaction to some of them and the fallout as a result of Trump's election last week. So there's a lot to get to, a lot to get to. We may not get to it all, but let's get after it. All right, like I said, thank you for joining us here on the SHR Media Network, where you can catch all the other great shows like The Edge of Liberty with my friend Sackhead Sean, The Reaver of Common Sense with Jersey Joe, and BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon with BZ. And please, before we get started, go ahead and hit the like button, share this video, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to all the channels, subscribe to The Edge of Liberty, subscribe to Jersey Joe's Reaver of Common Sense, subscribe to the Berserk Bobcat Saloon. We need you to do this so that we can spread the word and make sure that we get the word out and we get the message out. And we need you to do this because the big tech overlords are actively, aggressively trying to suppress content like ours. And I mean, we just today, our shops, Mission Ready Men and Carry Girl Gear, those shops got suspended from Meta, from Facebook and Instagram. So they're actively trying. Trump's election hasn't changed that much. So let's go ahead and support us so that we can spread the word and get everybody on board. You can also follow us on socials, even though they suspended our shops, at Mission Ready Men on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And for our merch, head over to Mission Ready Men and click shop, and you'll get access to all of our great designs, like this new one right here that I'm wearing, the new Mission Ready Men t-shirt. Go ahead and check it out and pick one up. All right, now that we got that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into it. Trump's transition is in full swing. He is not pulling any punches. He's not messing around. Now, I don't know if you remember the last when he took over the last time. There was a lot of disarray. There was a lot of delays with his staffing, his White House, and he learned from that, and he is hitting the ground running. And let me tell you something. I am here for it. It has been outstanding to watch. From his first pick of his White House chief of staff, Susie Wiles. She's, by all accounts, I don't know that much about her other than what I've read so far. But by all accounts, she's been great. She did help him in Florida tremendously in his first and second campaigns. So that's been great. But one of the first picks that he had, and I mentioned this last time, but one of the first picks that he had was border czar. Now, we're not pulling any punches here. He is the border czar, even though he's replacing Kamala Harris, even though she claims that she was never the border czar, even though, like I said before, it's in the congressional record and on video that she's the border czar. She was the border czar. Well, I guess technically still is for the next 60 some odd days. But anyway, here is here is the incoming border czar, Tom Homan, letting it be known that he is not having any of it. This this is amazing. Check this out.
We have seen one estimate that says it would cost $88 billion to deport 1 million people a year.
I don't know if that's accurate or not.
Is that what American taxpayers should expect?
What price do you put on national security? Is that worth it?
Seriously, what price?
Is there a way to carry out mass deportation without separating families?
Of course there is. Families can be deported together.
We have seen one estimate that says
that is amazing. When I heard that, that just proved. I mean, we already knew Tom Homan. If you're familiar with Tom Homan, you already knew that he was the man for the job. That was the best answer anyone could have ever given, and and leftist heads just exploded. They couldn't believe it. It's racist. It's xenophobic. It's this. It's no. What price do you put on national security? What price? I mean, it's the way things are going right now. We are not going to have a country if we allow this type of invasion to continue. And Tom Homan he's not having any of it, and I'm here for it. Now, some of his other picks, Elise Stefanik, UN ambassador. The left is kind of grumbling about that, but it's not a huge deal. Mike Waltz, excuse me, not the other guy, is the national security advisor. Former Green Beret Army veteran. I mean, I think he's going to be great in that role. The left was grumbling about that until until some other picks came through, and we'll talk about those in a second. But one pick that kind of, I don't want to say puzzles me, but is I don't really understand, and I'm not really sure how I feel about it even now, even though it's been a few days, is Kristi Noem for DHS secretary, replacing Alejandro Mayorkas. Now, obviously, I think an amoeba would be a better pick than Mayorkas, so it's an upgrade regardless. But I'm not really sure how effective she's going to be. It's going to depend on whether or not she has good people around her who can carry out the vision that she's going to lay out, which should be the same vision as Donald Trump's. So we'll see about that. And another one that I'm not really sure about is Marco Rubio as Secretary of State. Now, he's a war hawk, and I think that might be good in terms of standing up to China and Russia, but at the same time, well, we'll just have to wait and see. I'm not really sure. I can't pass judgment on that just yet. Now let's get into some selections that have made leftist heads explode. First is CIA Director John Ratcliffe. John Ratcliffe, and I don't know if you remember him, but he sparred with Peter Strzok, who was one of the FBI agents who was instrumental in the Russia hoax back in the early days of Trump's first term as president. And he basically just destroyed Strzok. And it was so much fun to watch the expressions on Strzok's face. I didn't get a chance to pull any of the clips or any of the pictures from that time, but trust me when I tell you, and you can look it up for yourself. It was amazing. And of course, because of that, the left is not happy about his selection. The other one that made some heads explode on the left was Pete Hegseth as Secretary of Defense. I admit, when I first heard that it was going to be that he selected Pete Hegseth, I was kind of skeptical. But then I remembered he was a combat veteran. He ran an agency that was or a nonprofit organization that was dedicated to veterans' well-being and helping out veterans. So I was, well, put it this, that wasn't what put me firmly in his camp of supporting this. He, like I said, he's a combat veteran. He's been awarded 2 Bronze Stars. He has degrees from Princeton and Harvard, and in some circles that means a lot. And in this case, I think it's pretty impressive. But what really got me, and so after I read up on him, I realized he was a pretty good pick. But what made me think that he was the absolute best pick is the reaction from the left. They have been just ridiculing this guy, saying he's just a Fox News host on the weekend, like the weekend hosting gig is like somehow less than, and saying that he's woefully unqualified. And a lot of people who have been, like Elizabeth Warren, when she talked about how her family served, she clearly doesn't know that he is a 20-year veteran of the armed forces and a combat vet. And I think a lot of people don't really know this about him. And I think that he, because of the way they have just completely melted down over this pick, I think it is as good a pick as Trump could have made. He's young, he's smart, he knows the military, and I think he is going to be an outstanding Secretary of Defense. And finally, the last one, and this pick pretty much put Pete Hegseth's reaction on the back burner, was Matt Gaetz as Attorney General. Now, I didn't get a chance to pull the clip of him being asked a question about the women who are all up in arms about getting abortions and whatnot. And when a reporter asked him if his comments were offensive to people, his response was, "Be offended." Perfect. Absolutely perfect. But the reactions of some of these people who just can't wrap their minds around his pick, or any of these picks really for that matter. Nicole Wallace, former Bush White House staffer, says that his pick was shocking and galling. And Andrew Weissman said that he is untethered from facts and untethered from facts and law. And Oh yeah, he also said that it was Orwellian in the way that he's trying to say that he's projecting basically the left, saying that black is white and white is black and we're supposed to believe it. He's completely off the mark. And Chris Murphy had a reaction to it, and Chris Murphy is the Democrat senator from, I believe, Connecticut. And he is as big he's actually made some news recently for saying some things about the leftist loss that make sense. But at the same time, he is as big a lefty as you can possibly imagine. And here he is talking about this pick, and he's just, take a listen.
Of Republican senators who are now going to be in a position to stand up to Donald Trump in a way that they have been unwilling to. I mean, listen, Matt Gaetz is dangerously unqualified, but that's not the worst of it. Gaetz has been Trump's chief defender when it comes to Trump's assault on democracy, his attempt to overthrow the government on January 6th, and he has openly called for the abolition of law enforcement agencies if they don't get in line with conservative political priorities. This is going to be a red alert moment for American democracy. Matt Gaetz is being nominated for one reason and one reason only, because he will implement Donald Trump's transition of the Department of Justice from an agency that stands up for all of us to an agency that is simply an arm of the White House designed to persecute and prosecute Trump's political enemies. This is a stunning announcement in some ways, but not surprising in others, because Trump told us during the campaign that he was going to use the White House to go after people who.
All right, that's the rest of it is just diarrhea of the mouth as usual. But the irony, I don't think he actually caught, because he said that Gaetz was going to use the DOJ, weaponize the DOJ against Trump's political opponents. That is exactly what Merrick Garland has been doing since he took over as Attorney General. That is, come on. All these cases against Trump that have absolutely no merit. The irony is just, is off the charts with these people. And it's remarkable, really. It's quite remarkable that he actually said that without the slightest bit of self-reflection, without the slightest bit of self-awareness. Just amazing. So Trump is on the right track. Trump is on the right track without a doubt. He is, so far, his picks are killing it. His picks are killing it. I mean, some of them haven't raised many, haven't caused many waves, but some of them have just caused tsunamis. And I am here for every bit of it. Oh, man. All right. Before we move on, let's get a word from our sponsor of this show, Patriot Mobile. Now, we switched to Patriot Mobile a little more than a month ago, and the experience has been amazing. They have the best, the absolute best in customer service, and the service itself has been great. We haven't had any hiccups. The only hiccup we've had is basically just the transition into from our old carrier to the new one, because they've been uncooperative and stuff like that. But Now more than ever, though, it is important to support companies and organizations that share our values. And even though we won this past election, our votes are just not enough anymore. And Patriot Mobile not only shares our values and our beliefs, but they do something about it. They absolutely do something about it. They are America's only Christian conservative wireless carrier, and they donate a portion of every dollar that you pay in your bill to organizations that fight for causes that you care about. So switch to Patriot Mobile now and get free activation with the offer code Jackson. Go to patriotmobile.com/Jackson. Use the promo code Jackson, and you'll get, like I said, free activation and a discount. So visit patriotmobile.com/Jackson today. All right. Now, we all know that as far as conspiracy theories go, we have been basically batting 1,000, haven't we? I mean, every time they say, oh, that's a conspiracy theory. That's a conspiracy theory. There's no evidence of that. Anywhere between a week to a month later, you can pretty much guarantee that the evidence is going to come out that the so-called conspiracy theory was in fact true. What am I talking about? Well, we all remember back when Trump was running, and he said during the hurricanes Milton and Helene that FEMA was withholding aid. They were not helping Trump supporters. They were not helping Republican communities, conservative communities, and everyone in the American Pravda said that was a conspiracy theory. It was a lie. It was misinformation, disinformation. And I think we all realize now, well, those of us who have been paying attention for any length of time, we already knew that that it was true. We already, and there have been people on the ground like Graham Allen, who was on the ground in, I believe, North Carolina, and he documented it. He has a documentary on YouTube. I think it's only like 45 minutes or an hour long, where he talks about all of the stuff that's going on and not going on in terms of FEMA and stuff like that. I mean, we all remember the image of the black helicopter hovering real low and scattering all the supplies. The evidence has always been there. And so now we have the FEMA employee who sent a text out to all of her workers on the ground saying, avoid any houses that have Trump signs. Well, she is speaking out, and she is throwing them all under the bus. Check it out.
I was notified after I demoted. The next morning, they told me verbally I was fired, but they never provided me anything in writing stating that I was fired. They all alleged that these actions were made on my own recognizances and that it was for my own political advances. However, if you look at the record, there is what we call a community trend. And unfortunately, it just so happened that the political hostility that was encountered by my team, and I was on 2 different teams during this deployment, they just so happened to have the Trump campaign signage. FEMA always preaches avoidance first and then de-escalation. So this is not isolated. This is a colossal event of avoidance, not just in the state of Florida, but you will find avoidance in the Carolinas. Senior leadership will lie to you and tell you that they do not know. But if you ask
Senior
the
leadership
DSA
lying?
crew leads and specialists what they are experiencing in the field, they will tell you. Demand for FEMA to give you those incident reports. They will substantiate what is happening to us in the field.
So she basically just threw them under the bus. She threw them under the bus, and I couldn't be happier about it. Now, I said when I first mentioned this and that she needs to be in jail. And I still think she does. But so do all of her superiors. Everyone who had a hand in this culture, in this political affiliations should have absolutely no bearing on whether or not you need help. None. And yet here we are, these probably lifelong bureaucrats, lifelong leftists. If a Trump supporter needs help, well, too bad, so sad. I mean, that's criminal. That is absolutely criminal. And like I asked before, how many people died as a result of this? How many? We may never know. And that's why her superiors need to be in jail. But I think despite the fact that she was acting under orders, and how many times have people done some atrocious things when acting under orders? But she had to know, anyone with common sense has to know that that's just wrong. And she went along with it. So despite the fact that she claimed to be acting under orders and that it was the culture at FEMA, I still think she belongs in jail. Maybe not as long as some of the others, and I'm willing to have that discussion. But she absolutely, along with all the rest of them, belongs in jail. And you can disagree with me. I'd love to hear your reasoning why. But as far as I'm concerned, she belongs, all of them, every last one of them belong in jail. In fact, I think FEMA should just be completely revamped from the ground up. Just completely just gut that organization. And I hope Trump does that, because what's happening now can't continue. And that's true across the board of pretty much all of the government agencies. And another department, another appointment that made leftist heads explode, which I didn't really talk about, is the Department of Government Efficiency with Vivek and Elon Musk. I hope that FEMA is on their list to completely revamp and gut and maybe even disband and just replace it with something else, because like I said, this is unsustainable. All right. I want to move on to something that's only political in a tangential sort of way. And I want to try to include segments like this in each show. That may not happen, well, depending on what's going on. But I want to include at least once a week these segments that aren't just politics, but can be applied in our daily lives and help us in a broader sense. The show is called Mission Ready Men. The organization is called Mission Ready Men, and I've addressed why and what that means. I'm not going to do a deep dive into it again, but one of the things that led to the renaming of this podcast and the starting of this organization is the left's basically attack on manhood and masculinity. And I've ridiculed it. I've talked about it before. So I'm gonna take another minute to tell you why I wanted to do this, and why I want to address that attack on manhood and masculinity, and really traditional gender roles as a whole, but specifically men. And when you look back in history, and you don't even have to go back that far, but when you look back in history, when this country was prosperous and didn't get into a bunch of wars and stuff like that, when we subscribed to traditional gender roles, life was much better in this country. I mean, wasn't it? And along with that, most people in this country had a much closer relationship with God. And even for people who didn't necessarily have that relationship, they still respected those of us who do. And I've talked about this before, where it all started back in, well, not it all started, but it came to, they put the pedal to the metal in the 60s when they took the Bible and prayer out of schools and all that. And they made it so that women didn't have to have men in the home, and the government could support them. And we can get into all that at another time as well. But the beta males that the left now wants to be the model of manhood, those guys have no relationship with God. And some of them will claim that they do. Some of them will post pictures of them going to church where the minister or priest is wearing a rainbow sash and talking about how God made homosexuals and how God made trans people, and anyway, that's not a church, and that's not, whatever relationship you have, it's not with God. Just put it like that. Now, for me as a Christian, a relationship with God is required to fulfill God's plan for us as men. Find that in Micah 6:8. He has shown you, O man, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you but to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. That's it. That's it. And when you have that understanding and that relationship with God, that helps you fulfill all of your other responsibilities as a man and as a Christian. And to walk humbly doesn't mean to be meek. It doesn't mean to be submissive to God, obviously, but not to be submissive in your everyday life. We're required to be bold in our faith. And so to walk humbly means to just acknowledge that you're not perfect. Acknowledge that you're not perfect and accept Jesus Christ for your salvation. And when you do that, you understand that you have a dependence on God in order to sustain you in your daily life. And when you do that, when you understand that, and when you submit to that, everything else falls into place. And I'm not saying that it's going to be easy. I'm not saying that a relationship with God means your life magically becomes great and there are no more struggles or anything like that. quite the opposite, because once you do that, the enemy is going to attack. And anyone who has turned their life over to God and accepted Jesus Christ as their Savior knows beyond a shadow of a doubt that as soon as you do that, here comes the enemy to try and get you to turn away and to get you to think that it's not worth it. I assure you that it is. Now, as a man of God, the men of God need to study the word, need to read the word. I get up every morning and I read the Bible and I pray and I ask for understanding of what I've just read or what I'm about to read, depending on whether I pray before or after. But a man of God is required to learn and understand what the Bible says. You can't just say, yeah, I'm a Christian, I accept Jesus Christ, and then keep on doing what you've been doing up until that day. It doesn't work that way. And the beta males on social media who would say otherwise, like Doug Emhoff and Tim Walz and all the rest of them, they have no idea what they're talking about. They have no idea what they're talking about, so don't listen to them. But like I said, a godly man will study, learn, understand, grow in understanding, grow in faith and things like that through the Word of God. And what that will do is give you the tools to meet all of your other obligations as a man. And like I said before the election, a man, there's no way a man, especially a Christian man, could have voted for anyone other than Trump. I could respect somebody not voting because they didn't like Trump for whatever reason. I could respect that, but I could never respect a Christian man or any man voting for Kamala Harris. Just couldn't do it. It makes no sense on any level. Especially when she and those on the left celebrate everything that goes against Christianity and manhood. And so becoming a Christian, studying the Word of God, all of that is really just the first step, because atheists know the Bible. There are famous atheists on YouTube and social media who can quote the Bible. The devil can quote the Bible, but knowing it and actually living it out are two completely different things. So you have to actually submit, like I said before, understand that you are not perfect. Understand that you are not the be all and end all. Understand that when you submit to him, he is your savior. And then apply in your daily life the knowledge that you're gaining by reading the word. And one other thing that I'll just address before we move on to other topics. Men are required. A real man, a Christian man, is required to control his urges and his appetites and desires. 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verses 3-5 address that. And so I urge you to look that up, because it's not easy. With everything that we see in the world today, with everything that we see on social media, it's not easy. It's not easy to control those desires and those urges and those appetites. It's not. We are bombarded every single day with images and sounds from our music and images on social media. We are bombarded every day with these things that are designed to tempt us. And so what we have to do is, when we turn our lives over to God, is to rely on him to help us to overcome those urges and temptations. And like I said, it's not easy. And once you turn your life over to him, it's going to get even more difficult. You're going to be bombarded even more. The enemy is going to come after you even more. So in order for us to have this turnaround that we're seeing with Donald Trump being elected, in order for that to be sustainable, in order for that to be permanent, for lack of a better word, we need to turn back to God. We need to turn our lives back over to Jesus and let him steer us in the directions that we need to go. And if we do that, and speaking from experience, if we do that, this country will be on a trajectory that we haven't even yet seen. We've been prosperous before, and we've been great before. But if we can do that as a country led by men, there is absolutely no telling the heights that we could reach. And that's what I'm praying for. And that's what I'm going to try and use this platform to help bring about. So yeah, let's do it. Guys that are watching, come on. Let like I always say, let's get after it. All right. I've had enough preaching. This next topic that we're going to get into is kind of tangentially related to what we just talked about. And I'm sure you've seen and heard over the past, I don't know. Well, if you've been a Trump supporter for the entire time, you probably heard something similar to this. Jonathan Turley wrote a piece a few days ago, based on a segment that was on Joy Reid's The Readout, Joyless Reid, the racist Joyless Reid. And she had this Yale professor on the show who basically said, if you have family members who voted for Trump and they basically voted for everything that you're against, well, then you should just cut them off. And we've seen other people talk about this, that deviant Jeffrey Marsh, who I've talked about before, and he was targeting kids. So that's a whole other issue that we can get into some other time. But these people, they really just want to separate and cut people off from their lives because of political differences. Now, I've never done that. I've had it done to me, but I've never cut somebody out of my life because I disagreed with them politically. I actually had the most fun with some people who we disagreed politically, and we had some great discussions. Then some people took things a bit too far, and I cut them off for those reasons, not because we disagree. But here this woman is basically saying, yeah, Get rid of them. Come off.
How do you interact with people who you know voted for this, right? If you are an LGBTQ person and you know someone in your family voted essentially against your rights, or you're a woman knowing that, this man was calling people the B word. JD Vance was literally calling Kamala Harris the trash and said, we're going to take out the trash. I know a lot of Black women were incredibly triggered by that. And if you then meet somebody and they voted for the people who called you trash, or if you're Puerto Rican, someone voted that way, do you recommend, just from a psychological standpoint, being around them? We got the holidays coming up.
So I love that you asked this question, because, there is a push, I think just a societal norm, that if somebody is your family, that they are entitled to your time. And I think the answer is absolutely not. So if you are going into a situation where you have family members, where you have close friends who have voted in ways that are against you, like what you said, against your livelihood, and it's completely fine to not be around those people and to tell them why, to say, I have a problem with the way that you voted because it went against my very livelihood, and I'm not going to be around you this holiday. I need to take some space for me. And I actually talk to, adults as well as advising parents for children. I mean, I think, I don't think that you should force children. I don't think you should force adults to be around people just because they're your family. I think there's a level of, need to establish boundaries. And if you feel like you need to establish boundaries with people, whether they're your family or not, I think you should very much be entitled to do so. And I think it may be essential for your mental health.
Wow. That's actually kind of sad. And yes, families disagree, nobody's the same, so people will vote differently and stuff like that. But what does a vote for Trump have to do with somebody in the LGBTQ alphabet community? What rights is he taking away? What danger are they in? I've heard so many people talk about that. I've seen so many people in that community on social media say that they're scared and this, that. Why? Nobody cares. Christians care for your eternal soul, yes, and we pray that you come out of that lifestyle. But at the same time, unless you're messing with children, nobody cares. Unless you're trying to transition kids, nobody cares. Live your life. We'll pray for you, but live your life. And I've asked the question of a number of people, and I've yet to get an answer what rights they think are at stake, why they're fearful. What is it? Nobody can answer the question. Now, I do have one caveat to that, and I kind of just alluded to it. The Bible does say in 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 14, be ye not unequally yoked together with unbelievers. Now, when it comes to family, that's going to be difficult. And like I said, we pray for those people. But when it comes to friendships, when it comes to romantic relationships and things like that, maybe it is time for people to separate. Because make no mistake, the people on the left, they hate us. They absolutely hate us, and they hate everything that we stand for. They celebrate everything that we consider sinful. So I mean, they kill babies. They tell women to shout their abortions. They celebrate everything that Christians are against. They have months dedicated to those things. So in that respect, how can a Christian really have any unity with that? So I mean, if you're one of these people that celebrates the murder of children in the womb, okay, you think that I'm a bad person for voting against that? Well, bye. Kick rocks. I'm okay with it. I mean, and when it really comes down to it, and I know that they're preaching this unifying message right now and all that other stuff, that sounds great. But until they come around on some of these huge issues, like abortion, like transing kids, until they reject that, okay, you want to separate from me? Fine. I don't care. Do it. Bye. I got no problems with it. So if that means families, and I know that's tough, but if that means families have rifts because of that, you pray for a unification on that front, but you got to keep it moving. Friends, you hope they come around, but at the same time, you got to keep it moving. And acquaintances, romantic relationships, whatever the case, there really can't be any unity when two people or two groups of people have such diametrically opposed views, especially if one group are Bible believing Christians and the other group are sacrificing children to Moloch. I mean, it really comes down to that simple analogy. How can you have unity between those two groups? You really can't. You really can't, and I'm okay with it. I'm not going to try and force people to be unified when that's the dividing line. It's that simple. All right, y'all, we are running out of time. And so I think that is going to be it. There were a couple of other things I wanted to get to, but I would be here for another hour, and we don't want that. So that is all I got for you this time. I will try to do better on the next one. Like I said before, please don't forget to like and subscribe and share this video, share these episodes. We continue to spread the message, spread the gospel of Jesus Christ and the hope and the blessings of liberty that he offers, because we want to make sure we preserve what we have for future generations. And if you like the shirt I'm wearing, the Mission Ready Men shirt, or any of the designs that we have, head over to missionreadymen.com, click on shop, and you'll see all the Seven Armors gear that we have. And there are some cool designs with some great messages of faith and patriotism. Because I don't know if you caught that from today's show, but not only am I a Christian, but I am a patriot. See that back there? Oh, that's the Texas flag, the American flag. There you go. That's right. So yeah, check out missionreadymen.com and go to the Seven Armor shop and pick out some designs, and head over to carrygirlgear.com as well. That's our female line. So guys, head over there and pick out something cool for your wife or your girlfriend. Anyway, folks, like I said, that's all I got. As always, when seconds count, The police are only minutes away, but the Lord is right there with you. So keep your prayers going up and your head on a swivel. God bless.